A 6-year-old girl paid for a stranger's coffee, not knowing he was a millionaire CEO. A 6-year-old girl, barely tall enough to reach the counter at a local coffee shop, wearing her mom's oversized apron that drags on the floor behind her. She's got pigtails that bounce when she walks and a smile that could light up the darkest room. But here's the thing, she shouldn't be there. She should be at home playing with dolls or watching cartoons. Instead, she's working, trying to help her sick mother pay the bills. This little girl had no idea that on one rainy Tuesday morning, she would meet a stranger who would change her family's life forever. She had no clue that the man sitting in the corner booth, checking his phone and looking frustrated, was worth over $50 million. And she definitely didn't know that her small act of kindness, paying for his coffee with her last few coins, would set off a chain of events that sounds too good to be true. But sometimes, just sometimes, real life is better than any fairy tale. Have you ever done something kind for a stranger without expecting anything back? Drop a comment and let me know, because what you're about to hear might just restore your faith in humanity. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you believe in the power of kindness, and subscribe because I guarantee this story will stay with you long after it's over. Let me introduce you to Maya Rodriguez. She's 6 years old, with big brown eyes that seem way too wise for someone her age. Maya lives in a small apartment above Tony's Café in downtown Phoenix with her mom, Carla. Their place isn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living room where the couch doubles as Carla's bed when the pain gets too bad. Carla used to be the kind of mom who never missed a school play, who packed elaborate lunches with little notes, who sang lullabies until Maya fell asleep. But that was before the cancer. Before the treatments that left her so weak she could barely get out of bed. Before the medical bills started piling up like snow in a blizzard. Maya doesn't really understand what cancer is. All she knows is that mommy gets tired a lot, and sometimes she cries when she thinks Maya isn't looking. All she knows is that they used to go to the movies on Fridays, but now they count every dollar twice before spending it. Tony's Café isn't fancy. It's the kind of place where truckers stop for coffee at 5 a.m., where construction workers grab breakfast sandwiches before heading to job sites, where lonely seniors come just to have someone to talk to. The coffee is strong, the food is simple, and everybody knows everybody else's business. Carla has worked there for 3 years, pulling double shifts when she could, saving every tip. Tony, the owner, is a good man, but he's running a business, not a charity. When Carla started missing work because of her treatments, he tried to be understanding. But bills don't wait for anyone to get better. This particular Tuesday morning in November started like any other terrible day. Carla woke up feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. The chemo session from 2 days before had left her nauseated and dizzy. She tried to get up, tried to get ready for her shift at the cafe, but her legs just wouldn't cooperate. Maya, baby, she called weakly from her bedroom. Come here. Maya appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day in her favorite purple dress, the one with tiny flowers that she insisted on wearing at least twice a week. She took one look at her mom's pale face and knew what was coming. You can't go to work today, can you, Mommy? Carla's eyes filled with tears. She hated this. Hated that her 6-year-old daughter had to worry about things like work and money. Hated that Maya had grown up too fast, too soon. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I can't today. That's when Maya did something that still gives me chills thinking about it. This tiny little girl, who should have been worried about which cartoon to watch or whether she'd have time to play before dinner, looked at her mom with the kind of determination you usually only see in grown-ups. I'll go. What? Maya, no. You can't dash. I can help, Mommy. I know how to clean tables. I know how to be nice to people. I can do it. And before Carla could protest any further, Maya was already pulling her mom's work apron out of the closet. The thing was huge on her. It went down to her ankles and the ties wrapped around her waist twice. But she put it on with the seriousness of someone getting ready for the most important job in the world. Looking back, I think that was the moment Maya stopped being just a kid. Not completely, but something shifted that day. Something that happens to children who have to grow up too fast, who have to carry weight that was never meant for their small shoulders. She walked the 6 blocks to Tony's café in the cold November morning, that oversized apron flapping behind her like a cape. The bell above the door chimed when she walked in, and every conversation in the place stopped. Because there's something heart-stopping about seeing a 6-year-old girl dressed for work when she should be getting ready for school. Tony looked up from the register, confused. Maya, what are you doing here, kiddo? Where's your mom? Mommy's sick, Maya said simply. I'm here to work her shift. The silence in that cafe was deafening. Here was this tiny girl, serious as could be, ready to take on the world so her mom wouldn't lose her job. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever had to grow up too soon, if you've ever carried responsibility that felt too heavy, hit that like button right now. Because Maya's story is just getting started. Tony didn't know what to do. He couldn't let a 6-year-old actually work, but he also couldn't send her home to a sick mother with no money coming in. So he made a decision that probably saved that family from falling apart completely. Okay, Maya, you can help. But just small things, alright? You can wipe down tables, maybe bring people their coffee. Nothing too heavy. Maya's face lit up like Christmas morning. Thank you, Mr. Tony. I promise I'll work really hard. And she did. For the next 4 hours, this little girl moved through that cafe like she'd been doing it her whole life. She carefully carried coffee cups to tables, using both hands and walking slowly so she wouldn't spill. She wiped down tables with a seriousness that would have been funny if it wasn't so heartbreaking. She smiled at every customer like they were the most important person in the world. The regular customers were gentle with her. They overtipped, they thanked her extra warmly, they asked about her mom. But here's the thing about being 6 years old in an adult world, even when people are kind, you still feel invisible. You still feel like you don't quite belong. Maya didn't complain. She just kept working, kept smiling, kept pretending that everything was normal. Because what else was she supposed to do? She had no idea that in just a few hours, everything would change. What would you have done if you saw a 6-year-old girl trying to save her mom's job? Would you step in? Would you say something? Let us know in the comments below. And if this part of Maya's story touched you even a little, please tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us. Because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. At exactly 2:17 p.m., I know the time because it was on the security footage that would later become crucial to this story. The door to Tony's cafe opened, and in walked a man who looked completely out of place. His name was Robert Brooks, though Maya wouldn't learn that for several more days. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people make in a month. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, his haircut was perfect, and he carried himself with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. Robert Brooks was the CEO of Brooks Development, a company that built shopping centers and office complexes all over the Southwest. He was worth $53 million, owned houses in 3 states, and drove a car that cost more than most people's homes. But none of that mattered right then, because he was having the kind of day that makes even millionaires feel human. His flight from Los Angeles had been delayed by 3 hours. His phone had died somewhere over Nevada. His assistant had mixed up his meetings, and now he was running late for a conference call that could make or break a $20 million deal. He'd spotted Tony's cafe from his taxi and ducked in, hoping to find a quiet corner where he could use his laptop and get his life back together. He looked around the place with the expression of someone who'd clearly never been in a working-class cafe before. The mismatched chairs, the faded photographs on the walls, the smell of bacon grease and industrial coffee. It was as foreign to him as another planet. But he needed caffeine and Wi-Fi, so he made his way to the counter where Tony was manning the register. Large black coffee, no sugar, he said, already pulling out his phone to check his messages. And do you have Wi-Fi here? Sure do, Tony replied, writing the order on a cup. Passwords, good coffee, all lowercase. That'll be $2.75. Robert reached for his wallet and felt nothing. He patted his other pocket. Nothing. He checked his jacket pockets, his briefcase, everywhere he could think of. His wallet wasn't there. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He'd left it on the plane. In his rush to get off and catch his taxi, he'd left his wallet, with all his credit cards, his cash, his ID, sitting in the seat pocket of Flight 447. "Ah," he said, his face reddening. "I seem to have left my wallet on the plane. Do you take Apple Pay, or?" Tony shook his head. "Sorry, man. Cash only. There's an ATM down the street if you need to dash. I don't have my cards either. They're in the wallet." This was humiliating. Robert Brooks, who'd never had to check his bank balance, who'd never worried about affording anything, was standing in a café, unable to pay for a $2.75 cup of coffee. Around him, other customers were starting to notice the hold-up. Some were checking their watches, others were muttering under their breath. Tony looked sympathetic but firm. He'd been burned before by people promising to come back and pay later. In a place like this, every dollar mattered. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't dash. I'll pay for him." The voice was small and clear, and it came from somewhere around Robert's elbow level. He looked down and saw Maya, holding a crumpled $5 bill in her tiny hand. Her work apron was slightly stained from the morning's coffee service, and she had to stand on her tiptoes to reach the counter. "It's okay," she said, looking up at Robert with those big brown eyes. "I have money." Robert stared at her, speechless. This little girl, who was clearly working to help her family, was offering to pay for his coffee. A stranger's coffee. With what was probably her tip money from the morning. "Sweetie, you don't have to dash," he started. "It's okay," Maya repeated, sliding the $5 bill across the counter to Tony. "Mommy always says we should help people when they need it." Tony looked between Maya and Robert, then at the other customers who were now openly watching the scene unfold. The whole cafe had gone quiet. "Maya," Tony said gently, "this is your tip money. You earned this today." "I know," she said simply. "But he needs coffee, and I have money." "It's okay." Robert felt something crack inside his chest. When was the last time someone had helped him without wanting something in return? When was the last time anyone had showed him kindness just because it was the right thing to do? He couldn't remember. "Thank you," he said quietly, crouching down so he was at Maya's eye level. "That's very kind of you. What's your name?" "Maya," she said shyly, suddenly aware that everyone in the cafe was looking at her. "Well, Maya, I'm Robert. And I promise you, I'm going to pay you back." She tilted her head, confused. "You don't have to pay me back. It's a present." A present. This 6-year-old girl had just given a complete stranger a present, and she didn't even know his name. Robert took his coffee and found a table in the corner, but he couldn't concentrate on his emails or his phone calls. He kept watching Maya as she went back to work, wiping tables and refilling sugar dispensers like nothing extraordinary had just happened. To her, it probably wasn't extraordinary. It was just what you did when someone needed help. But for Robert, it was the first time in years that someone had seen him as just another human being who needed help, not as a CEO or a wealthy investor or a business opportunity. Maya hadn't helped him because of who he was or what he could do for her. She'd helped him because he was a person, and people help each other. He sat in that cafe for 2 hours, long after he'd finished his coffee, just watching this little girl work. He saw how carefully she carried things, how she apologized when she accidentally bumped into someone, how she smiled even when she was clearly tired. He saw the other customers leave bigger tips than usual, probably trying to help her out. He saw Tony keeping a protective eye on her, making sure she didn't lift anything too heavy or reach for anything too high. And he saw something else. He saw a child carrying responsibility that no child should have to carry. He saw a little girl trying to save her family, one coffee cup at a time. When he finally left, Robert pressed a $20 bill into Maya's hand. "For the coffee," he said. "And the kindness." Maya looked at the 20 like it was 100. "This is too much money, Mr. Robert." "No," he said. "It's not nearly enough." As he walked out of Tony's cafe and back into his world of business deals and board meetings, Robert Brooks couldn't stop thinking about Maya Rodriguez. He didn't know it yet, but that little girl had just changed his life forever. Would you pay for a stranger's coffee, especially if it was the last money you had? Be honest in the comments. I really want to know. Because what Maya did next is going to blow your mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because this simple gesture is about to spark something unimaginable. Something happens to a person when they encounter pure, unselfish kindness. It's like being hit by lightning, except instead of burning you, it illuminates parts of yourself you'd forgotten existed. That's what happened to Robert Brooks that Tuesday afternoon. He went back to his hotel, handled his conference call, rescheduled his meetings. But every few minutes, his mind would drift back to Maya. Her small hands carefully carrying coffee cups, her serious expression as she wiped down tables, the way she'd offered her tip money without a second thought. That night, lying in his king-sized hotel bed, Robert couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his own childhood, memories he'd buried under decades of business success and financial achievement. He remembered being 8 years old, standing in a grocery store while his mother counted and recounted the money in her purse, trying to figure out if they could afford both milk and bread that week. He remembered the shame he'd felt, the way other shoppers had looked at them, the desperate desire to be invisible. His mother, Elena Brooks, had raised him alone after his father walked out when Robert was 5. She'd worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and serving lunch at a diner during the day, just to keep them afloat. Robert remembered nights when she'd give him her portion of dinner, claiming she wasn't hungry, so he'd have enough to eat. When had he forgotten that? When had he stopped remembering where he came from? The next morning, Wednesday, Robert found himself walking into Tony's cafe again. He told himself he needed coffee for his morning meetings. But really, he needed to see Maya again, to make sure yesterday had really happened. She was there, wearing the same oversized apron, carefully arranging pastries in the display case. When she saw him, her face lit up with recognition. "Mr. Robert, you came back." "I did," he said, smiling despite himself. "How are you today, Maya?" "I'm good. Mommy felt a little better this morning, so she made me lunch." Maya held up a paper bag. "Peanut butter and jelly. Want to see?" The innocence of it hit him hard. This little girl was excited to show him her lunch, proud that her sick mother had managed to make her a sandwich. It was such a small thing, but in Maya's world, it was everything. "That looks delicious," Robert said. "Is your mom feeling better?" Maya's expression grew serious. "A little bit. But she still gets really tired. The doctor said she has to take lots of medicine that makes her feel yucky." "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be hard." "It's okay," Maya said with the matter-of-fact acceptance that only children can manage. "Mommy says sometimes life gives us hard things so we can learn to be strong. And I'm getting really strong." Robert ordered his coffee and found the same corner table. Throughout the morning, he watched Maya work, and he started to see things that broke his heart. He saw her stretch on her tiptoes to reach things that were too high for her. He saw her struggle to lift a tray that was too heavy. He saw customers treat her with kindness, but also saw them exchange looks of pity when they thought she wasn't watching. Around noon, the lunch rush hit, and Maya was overwhelmed. Tony was handling the register and cooking, and Maya was trying to serve tables, but there were too many people and not enough of her. Robert watched her rush from table to table, her small face flushed with effort and stress. That's when it happened. Maya was carrying a tray with 3 coffee cups when someone opened the door too quickly. The sudden movement startled her, and she stumbled. The tray tilted, and hot coffee splashed across her arm. Maya cried out in pain and surprise, and Robert was on his feet before he even realized he was moving. He reached her just as Tony came running from behind the counter. "Maya, sweetheart, are you okay?" Tony was already reaching for the first aid kit. "It hurts," Maya whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "It really hurts." Robert knelt beside her, his expensive suit forgotten. "Let me see, honey. We need to get some cold water on this right away." He helped Tony get Maya to the back room, where they ran cold water over her burned arm. It wasn't serious, just a minor burn, but seeing Maya in pain triggered something protective in Robert that he hadn't felt in years. "You're being so brave," he told her as Tony bandaged her arm. So brave." "I dropped the coffee," Maya said through her tears. "Now Mr. Tony has to clean it up, and those people didn't get their drinks, and dash." "Hey," Robert said firmly, taking her uninjured hand in his. "None of that matters, okay? The only thing that matters is that you're all right. People can wait for coffee. You can't wait for taking care of yourself." Maya looked at him with those big brown eyes, still teary but trusting. "My mommy says that taking care of people is the most important job in the world." "Your mommy is very smart," Robert said. "But you know what? Sometimes we have to let other people take care of us too." After Maya was bandaged up and feeling better, Robert made a decision. He called his assistant and cancelled all his afternoon meetings. Instead, he spent the rest of the day at Tony's café, helping Maya with the heavier tasks, making sure she didn't overdo it. He carried trays for her. He reached things from high shelves. He even helped her wipe down tables, much to the amusement of the regular customers who couldn't quite figure out why a man in a $1,000 suit was bussing tables at a neighborhood café. "Mr. Robert," Maya said as the afternoon wound down, "how come you're so nice to me?" The question caught him off guard. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that she'd reminded you of your own humanity? How do you tell a child that her simple act of kindness had cracked open something in your heart that you'd thought was permanently closed? "Because," he said finally, "someone was nice to me once when I really needed it. And I think we're supposed to pass that along." Maya nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to her. Of course it did. In her world, kindness was just what people did. As Robert prepared to leave that evening, Maya tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Robert, will you come back tomorrow?" He looked down at her hopeful face, at this little girl who'd somehow become important to him in the span of 2 days, and felt his heart break a little more. "I'll try," he said. "I have to go back to my regular job soon, but I'll try." "Okay," Maya said. "I hope you do. You make the cafe feel nicer." As Robert walked back to his hotel that night, he realized something had fundamentally shifted inside him. For the first time in years, maybe decades, he'd spent a day not thinking about profits or deals or business strategies. He'd spent a day thinking about a little girl with a burned arm and a sick mother, and somehow, that felt more important than anything else in his life. But he still didn't know the whole truth about Maya's situation. He didn't know just how sick her mother really was, or how desperate their financial situation had become. He was about to find out, and when he did, everything would change. If you've ever been torn between your heart and your fears, if you've ever met someone who changed you without trying, leave a heart in the comments. Because what Robert discovers next is going to turn this whole story upside down. Robert Brooks was a man who solved problems for a living. When he wanted to know something, he found out. When he needed information, he got it. So on Thursday morning, instead of flying back to Los Angeles as planned, he made a phone call that would change everything. "Jennifer," he said to his assistant, "I need you to do some research for me." Quietly. "Of course, Mr. Brooks. What do you need?" "There's a cafe in Phoenix called Tony's Cafe. The owner is, I think his name is Tony Martinez. I need to know about one of his employees, a woman named Carla Rodriguez. She has a 6-year-old daughter named Maya." "What kind of information are you looking for?" Robert paused. What was he looking for? He told himself it was just curiosity, just making sure Maya and her mother were okay. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. He was already emotionally invested in this family, and he needed to know how bad things really were. Medical information, if you can find it. Financial situation. I need to understand what they're dealing with. I'll see what I can find." 2 hours later, Jennifer called back. What she told him made Robert sit down hard in his hotel chair. "Mr. Brooks, I found the information you requested. Carla Rodriguez, age 34, single mother. She was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer 8 months ago. She's been receiving treatment at Phoenix General Hospital, but... Jennifer paused. But what? She doesn't have insurance, sir. She's been paying out of pocket for everything: chemotherapy, radiation, medications. According to the hospital billing records I was able to access, she owes over $180,000 in medical bills. Her wages from the café are being garnished. She's behind on rent by 3 months. There's an eviction notice filed against her apartment. Robert felt the world tilt around him. Stage 3 cancer. No insurance. $180,000 in debt. An eviction notice. Jennifer, you said stage 3. What's the prognosis for that? Another pause. Without consistent treatment, it's not good, Mr. Brooks. The survival rate drops significantly if treatment is interrupted. And according to these records, she's missed several appointments recently, probably because she can't afford them. Robert hung up the phone and sat in the silence of his hotel room, processing what he'd just learned. Maya's mother wasn't just sick, she was dying. And not just dying, but dying because she couldn't afford to live. The little girl who'd paid for his coffee with her tip money was working in a cafe while her mother slowly died at home, unable to afford the treatment that could save her life. The child who'd smiled and served customers and never complained was carrying a weight that would crush most adults. Robert thought about his own mother, how she'd sacrificed everything for him. How she'd worked herself to exhaustion just to keep him fed and housed and safe. Elena Brooks had died 10 years ago, but she'd lived to see her son become successful. She'd lived to see him buy her a house, to take care of her the way she'd taken care of him. Maya might not get that chance. Robert stood up abruptly, his decision made before his rational mind could talk him out of it. He was going to help them. He was going to pay Carla's medical bills, take care of their rent, make sure she got the treatment she needed. It was the least he could do. It was what his mother would have wanted him to do. But first, he needed to understand their situation completely. He needed to meet Carla Rodriguez. That afternoon, Robert walked into Tony's cafe with a nervous energy he hadn't felt since his first big business presentation 20 years ago. Maya was there, as always, but she looked tired. More tired than a 6-year-old should ever look. "Hi, Mr. Robert," she said, but her usual bright smile was dimmed. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you today?" "I'm okay. Mommy had a really bad night, so she's extra sleepy today." Robert's heart clenched. "Maya, would it be possible for me to meet your mommy sometime? I'd like to talk to her." Maya's expression grew cautious. "Why do you want to talk to mommy?" It was a fair question. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you want to save her mother's life? "Well," Robert said carefully, "you've been so kind to me these past few days. I'd like to meet the person who taught you to be so wonderful." Maya considered this, then nodded. "I think mommy would like that. She always likes meeting nice people. But she gets tired really fast now." "That's okay. I don't need very long." That evening, Maya led Robert up the narrow stairs to the apartment above the cafe. The building was old, the carpet worn, the walls thin enough that you could hear conversations from the neighboring apartments. But Maya climbed those stairs like she was leading him to a palace. "Mommy," Maya called as she opened the apartment door. "I brought a friend." The apartment was small but clean, with the kind of decorations that spoke of love rather than money. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Photos of Maya at various ages lined a bookshelf. A couch was made up with blankets and pillows, clearly being used as a bed. Carla Rodriguez appeared in the doorway to what Robert assumed was the bedroom, and he had to work to keep his expression neutral. She was thin, too thin, with the pale, drawn look of someone fighting a battle inside their own body. But her eyes were alert and intelligent, and she carried herself with dignity despite her obvious exhaustion. "Maya, who's this?" Carla asked, wrapping a robe tighter around herself. "This is Mr. Robert," Mommy. He's the nice man I told you about. The one who I bought coffee for. Carla's expression shifted to understanding, then embarrassment. Oh, Mr. Brooks, Robert said, extending his hand. Robert Brooks. And please don't be embarrassed about the coffee. Your daughter's kindness meant more to me than you could possibly know. Carla shook his hand, and Robert was shocked by how frail her grip was. This woman was dying, and she was doing it quietly, bravely, trying not to let her daughter see how scared she was. They sat in the small living room, Maya curled up next to her mother like a protective kitten. Robert found himself struggling to find the right words. How do you tell someone you want to pay their medical bills? How do you offer help without making them feel like charity cases? Mrs. Rodriguez, he began. Maya has been helping at the café while you've been under the weather. She's remarkable. You should be very proud. I am, Carla said, stroking Maya's hair. But she shouldn't have to be there. She should be in school, playing with friends. This isn't how I wanted things to be. Mommy, Maya said quietly, I like helping. I know you do, baby. But it's not your job to take care of me. Robert watched this exchange and felt something break inside his chest. Here was a mother trying to protect her child from the reality of their situation, and a child trying to save her mother. Both of them carrying burdens they shouldn't have to carry. Mrs. Rodriguez, Robert said carefully, I'd like to help if you'll let me. Carla's back straightened. We don't need charity, Mr. Brooks. It wouldn't be charity. Your daughter helped me when I needed it. I'd like to return the favor. By buying us groceries? Paying our rent. Carla's voice had an edge to it now. We're not a project, Mr. Brooks. We're people. I know that, Robert said quietly. I know exactly what you are. You're a family trying to survive something that no family should have to face alone. Carla stared at him for a long moment, and Robert could see the war going on behind her eyes. Pride fighting with desperation. Independence battling with love for her daughter. What exactly are you offering? She asked finally. Robert took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would either save this family or destroy his relationship with them forever. Medical bills, he said simply. All of them. Treatment, medications, whatever you need. And living expenses while you recover. The silence in that small apartment was deafening. Maya looked between her mother and Robert, not fully understanding what was being offered but sensing its importance. Carla's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Brooks, that's impossible. Do you have any idea how much money we're talking about? I do, Robert said. And it doesn't matter. It's just money. Just money. Carla laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Just money. Do you hear yourself? Mommy, Maya said in a small voice. Why are you crying? Carla pulled her daughter closer, and Robert could see her struggling to hold herself together. Because sometimes, Maya, grown-ups get overwhelmed by kindness. Is that good or bad? Maya asked. I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know. What would you do if a stranger offered to save your life with no strings attached? Tell me in the comments, because this story just took a turn that's going to shock you. If this twist caught you off guard, smash that like button. The real story is just beginning. Pride is a funny thing. It can keep you going when everything else fails, but it can also destroy you when you need help most. Carla Rodriguez had been surviving on pride for months. Pride and determination and the fierce love of a mother who would do anything for her child. But now, faced with Robert's offer, that same pride threatened to cost her everything. No, she said, standing up abruptly. Absolutely not. Robert remained seated, his voice calm. Mrs. Rodriguez, please think about this dash. Think about what? Think about taking handouts from a stranger? Think about teaching my daughter that we can't take care of ourselves. Carla's voice was rising, and Maya shrank back against the couch cushions. Think about living, Robert said quietly. Think about being here for Maya's 7th birthday. Think about walking her to school, helping her with homework, being her mother for more than just a few more months. The words hit Carla like physical blows. "How dare you?" she whispered. "How dare you come into my home and throw my diagnosis in my face?" "Mommy," Maya said, her voice small and scared. "Why are you fighting?" Carla knelt down beside her daughter, forcing her voice to gentleness. "We're not fighting, baby. We're just talking about grown-up things." "But you're sad," Maya observed. "And Mr. Robert looks sad too." Robert did look sad. He looked heartbroken, actually. He'd thought he was offering salvation, but instead he'd somehow made things worse. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he said, standing up, "I didn't mean to upset you. I just wanted to help." "Help?" Carla stood too, wrapping her robe tighter around her thin frame. "You want to help? Then leave us alone. We were doing fine before you showed up, and we'll be fine after you leave." "Were you doing fine?" Robert asked, and there was no challenge in his voice, just genuine sadness. "Really?" Carla opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. Because they both knew the truth. She wasn't fine. Maya wasn't fine. They were drowning, and Robert had thrown them a lifeline, and she was too proud to grab it. "I think you should go," Carla said finally. Robert nodded slowly. "I think you're probably right." He looked at Maya, who was watching the adults with wide, confused eyes. "Maya, it was wonderful meeting you and your mom. You take care of yourself, okay? Are you not coming to the cafe anymore?" Maya asked, and the disappointment in her voice was like a knife to Robert's heart. "I don't think so, sweetheart. I have to go back to my regular life now." Maya's face crumpled. "But I thought we were friends." "We are friends," Robert said, kneeling down to her level one last time. "We'll always be friends. But sometimes friends have to say goodbye." "I don't want to say goodbye," Maya whispered. Neither did Robert. But he could see the fury in Carla's eyes, the way she was holding herself rigid with anger and wounded pride. He'd pushed too hard, too fast. He'd made her feel like a charity case instead of a person deserving of help. "Take care of your mom," he told Maya. "And take care of yourself." He left that apartment with a heavy heart, knowing he'd probably just made the biggest mistake of his life. But what else could he do? He couldn't force help on someone who didn't want it, no matter how desperately they needed it. Over the next few days, Robert tried to go back to his normal life. He flew back to Los Angeles, attended his meetings, reviewed his contracts. But every morning, he found himself thinking about Maya. Every evening, he wondered if Carla was getting sicker, if Maya was still working at the cafe, if they were managing to keep their heads above water. He called Tony's cafe once, pretending to be a customer asking about their hours. Tony mentioned that Maya hadn't been in for a few days, that Carla was too sick to work, and that he was worried about them. Robert hung up feeling even worse. Meanwhile, back in Phoenix, things were falling apart for the Rodriguez family. Carla's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Without consistent treatment, the cancer was advancing, and she was spending more and more time in bed, too weak to even take care of basic household tasks. Maya tried to fill the gap. She learned to make simple meals, peanut butter sandwiches, cereal, instant soup. She helped her mother to the bathroom when walking became difficult. She brought her water and medications and sat with her during the worst of the pain. But a 6-year-old child can only do so much. The bills continued to pile up. The eviction notice remained taped to their door. The phone calls from creditors never stopped. 3 days after Robert left, Maya made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She took the emergency $20 bill her mother kept hidden in a coffee can and walked to the nearest grocery store. She bought the cheapest food she could find, ramen noodles, crackers, milk that was about to expire. On her way home, she passed a homeless man sitting outside the store. He looked hungry and cold, and Maya remembered what her mother had always taught her. When you have a little extra, you share it with someone who has nothing. She gave him her change, $3.47. It wasn't much, but it was all she had left. She had no way of knowing that a local news reporter happened to be at the grocery store that day, doing a story about holiday shopping. She had no way of knowing that the reporter overheard her conversation with the homeless man, saw this tiny girl sharing her last few dollars with a stranger. The reporter followed Maya home, keeping her distance. She watched as Maya struggled up the stairs to her apartment, loaded down with grocery bags that were too heavy for her small arms. She saw the eviction notice on the door, the worn-down building, the circumstances that had led a 6-year-old to be grocery shopping alone. That night, the story ran on the local news. 6-year-old girl shares last dollars with homeless man while caring for dying mother. The reporter had done her research. She'd found out about Carla's cancer, about the medical bills, about Maya working at the café. She'd also discovered something else. She'd found out about Robert Brooks. The story mentioned that a wealthy businessman had recently tried to help the family, but that his offer had been refused. It painted Robert as a generous man trying to do good, and Carla as a proud woman who was letting her daughter suffer because she was too stubborn to accept help. The story went viral. Within hours, it was being shared across social media platforms. News outlets across the country picked it up. Maya's picture, the one of her carefully counting her money at the grocery store, was everywhere. Robert saw it on the news in his Los Angeles office. He watched in horror as his private attempt to help became public knowledge, as Maya and Carla's struggle was broadcast to millions of strangers. His phone started ringing immediately. Reporters wanting quotes. Colleagues calling to congratulate him on his charitable work. Acquaintances who suddenly wanted to be involved in his foundation. But Robert didn't care about any of that. He cared about Maya, who was now famous for all the wrong reasons. He cared about Carla, whose private battle with cancer was now public knowledge. He cared about a family whose dignity had been stripped away by a well-meaning news story. He tried calling Tony's Café, but the line was busy. Probably reporters, he thought. He tried calling the hospital where Carla was being treated, but they couldn't give him information about patients. So he did the only thing he could do. He got on a plane back to Phoenix. When he arrived at Tony's Café that evening, he found chaos. There were news vans parked outside, reporters trying to get interviews with anyone who would talk to them. Inside, Tony was overwhelmed, trying to serve his regular customers while fielding calls from journalists and curiosity seekers. "Robert," Tony called out when he saw him. "Thank God you're here. It's been insane. People have been calling all day, wanting to know about Maya and her mom. Some good Samaritans have been dropping off money and food, but also..." He gestured helplessly at the circus outside. "Where are they?" Robert asked. "Where are Maya and Carla?" "Upstairs, hiding. Carla's furious. She thinks you're the one who called the news." Robert felt his stomach drop. "I didn't. I swear I didn't. I believe you, but she doesn't. She's been getting calls all day from reporters and strangers. Someone even showed up at the door claiming to be from a charity, but wanted to take pictures of Maya for their website." Robert closed his eyes, imagining how violated Carla must feel, how scared Maya must be. This was exactly what he'd been trying to avoid, turning their private struggle into a public spectacle. "I need to see them," he said. "Good luck," Tony replied. "Carla's not talking to anyone right now." Robert climbed the stairs to the apartment, his heart pounding. He could hear voices inside, Maya crying, Carla trying to comfort her. He knocked gently on the door. "Go away." Carla's voice was sharp with pain and anger. "We don't want to talk to any more reporters." "It's Robert," he called. "Please, just let me explain." The voices inside stopped. After a long moment, the door opened a crack, and Carla peered out. She looked terrible, pale, shaky, exhausted. But her eyes were blazing with fury. "You," she said. "You did this." "No," Robert said quickly. "I didn't. I swear to you, I had nothing to do with the news story." "Then how did they know about you? How did they know you offered to help us?" Robert shook his head. I don't know. Maybe someone at the cafe overheard us talking. Maybe someone saw me here and put two and two together. But I didn't call anyone. I would never do that to you. Carla stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for signs of deception. Behind her, Robert could see Maya sitting on the couch, her face streaked with tears. Maya's been getting phone calls, Carla said finally. Strangers wanting to interview her. People showing up at the door with cameras. She's terrified. I'm so sorry, Robert said. This is the last thing I wanted to happen. Is it? Carla's voice was bitter. Because it certainly worked out well for you. Now you look like the generous millionaire, and I look like the stubborn woman who won't accept help for her dying daughter. That's not how I see it, Robert said. And it's not how anyone who matters sees it. Everyone sees it that way. Carla's voice cracked. The whole world is watching us now, judging us, deciding whether we deserve help or not. They've turned my daughter into a poster child for poverty, and they've turned you into some kind of saint. Robert could see Maya getting more upset as her mother's voice rose. He needed to calm this situation down before it got any worse. Can I come in? He asked quietly. Just for a minute. I have something to tell you, and I don't want to say it in the hallway. Carla hesitated, then stepped aside. Robert entered the small apartment, and Maya immediately ran to him, wrapping her arms around his legs. Mr. Robert, she sobbed. Everyone's being mean to us. They keep calling and asking questions, and Mommy's scared, and I don't understand why people are taking pictures of our house. Robert knelt down and held her, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Over her head, he met Carla's eyes. I have a proposal, he said quietly. Let me get you out of here. Let me take you somewhere safe, away from the reporters and the cameras. Somewhere you can rest and Maya can be a kid again. And then what? Carla asked. You parade us around some more? Use us for your good publicity? No, Robert said firmly. Then nothing. No publicity, no cameras, no interviews. Just a safe place for you to recover and for Maya to heal from all this. Carla looked at her daughter, still clinging to Robert like he was a lifeline. She looked at the phone, which had been ringing non-stop for hours. She looked at the window, where she could see the news vans still parked outside. Where? She asked finally. I have a house in Sedona, Robert said. It's quiet, private. No one would bother you there. And what do you want in return? Nothing, Robert said. Just the chance to help without making things worse. Carla was quiet for a long time, holding herself upright through sheer force of will. Finally, she spoke. If we do this, if we let you help us, I need you to understand something. This isn't about gratitude. This isn't about you being a hero. This is about my daughter having a chance at a normal life. The moment you make this about anything else, we're gone. I understand, Robert said. And I pay you back. Every penny. I don't care how long it takes. Mrs. Rodriguez dash. Every penny, she repeated firmly. Or we don't do this at all. Robert nodded. Every penny. That night, while Maya slept fitfully on the couch and the reporters finally went home, Carla Rodriguez made the hardest decision of her life. She was going to let a stranger save her family. She had no idea that this decision would change all of their lives in ways she never could have imagined. If you've ever walked away from someone you cared about because you thought it was the right thing to do, was it? Comment below and hit subscribe, because the most powerful moment is still coming. Robert's house in Sedona was like something out of a dream. Nestled in the red rocks of northern Arizona, it was modern but warm, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over breathtaking desert vistas. It was the kind of place where you could hear yourself think, where the only sounds were wind through the canyon and the occasional call of a hawk circling overhead. Maya had never seen anything like it. She stood in the living room, turning in slow circles, her mouth open in wonder. Mr. Robert, she whispered, do you live in a castle? Robert laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in days. "It's not a castle, sweetheart. It's just a house. But it's your house now, for as long as you need it. The whole house." Maya's eyes were wide. The whole house. Maya ran to the window and pressed her face against the glass. "Mommy, look. You can see the whole world from here." Carla was less impressed. She stood in the entryway, still weak from the trip, still overwhelmed by everything that had happened. She looked around at the expensive furniture, the original artwork on the walls, the kitchen that was bigger than their entire apartment. "This is too much," she said quietly. "It's just sitting here empty most of the time," Robert replied. "I'm usually in Los Angeles or traveling. It might as well be used by people who can appreciate it." Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. Away from the chaos of the news coverage, away from the stress of bills and eviction notices, Carla began to heal. Not just physically, though the rest and reduced stress certainly helped with that, but emotionally. For the first time in months, she wasn't constantly worried about money or housing or whether Maya was safe. Maya flourished in the peaceful environment. She explored the house like it was a magical kingdom, discovering the library with its floor-to-ceiling books, the garden where hummingbirds came to feed, the game room with its pool table and old arcade games. She was still the same serious, responsible little girl, but for the first time in months, she was also allowed to just be a kid. Robert found himself driving up from Phoenix every few days, ostensibly to check on them but really because he couldn't stay away. He told himself it was just to make sure they were settling in okay, that Carla was getting the medical care she needed. But the truth was, he'd become emotionally invested in this family in a way that had nothing to do with charity or good deeds. He arranged for a private oncologist to come to the house for Carla's treatments. He hired a tutor for Maya so she wouldn't fall behind in school. He stocked the kitchen with healthy food and made sure they had everything they needed. But more than that, he found himself becoming part of their daily routine. He'd arrive on Friday evenings and stay through Sunday, helping Maya with her homework, cooking dinner with Carla when she felt up to it, sitting on the porch in the evenings watching the sunset paint the red rocks in shades of gold and crimson. "You don't have to keep coming," Carla told him one evening as they watched Maya chase fireflies in the garden. "We're doing fine on our own." "I know you are," Robert said. "I come because I want to, not because you need me to." Carla studied his profile in the fading light. "Why? Why do you want to be here?" It was a question Robert had been asking himself for weeks. Why did he look forward to his trips to Sedona more than his business meetings? Why did he find himself thinking about Maya's laugh during important phone calls? Why did he care so much about whether Carla was feeling better, whether the treatments were working? "Because," he said finally, "for the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something that actually matters. Not making money or closing deals or building my company. Just being here for people who've become important to me." Important how? Carla's voice was quiet, but there was something in it that made Robert turn to look at her. "You know how," he said. They sat in silence for a while, watching Maya play. The attraction between them had been building for weeks, but neither had acknowledged it. Carla because she was still sick, still vulnerable, still not sure if she could trust this man who'd turned their lives upside down. Robert because he was afraid of taking advantage of someone in such a desperate situation. "I'm not going to die," Carla said suddenly. "What?" "The cancer. The treatments are working. Dr. Martinez says if we can get it into remission, my long-term prognosis is good." She paused. "I wanted you to know because I don't want you to think I'm some tragic figure you need to rescue." Robert felt relief flood through him. Not just because Carla was going to be okay, but because she was right. He had been thinking of her as someone who needed rescuing. It was easier than admitting he was falling in love with her. "I'm glad," he said. "So glad." "Are you?" "Because it means you can't be the white knight anymore. We're not going to be your charity case forever." Robert turned to face her fully. "Carla, you were never my charity case. You are. God, I don't even know how to say this." "Try," she said softly. You're the woman who raised a daughter so kind and generous that she gave her last few dollars to help a stranger. You're the woman who's been fighting for her life while still making sure that daughter feels loved and safe. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I'm not here because you need rescuing. I'm here because I need you. Carla stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. Robert, I know it's complicated, he continued. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just about helping you and Maya. It stopped being about that the moment I realized I was in love with you. You're in love with me? Carla's voice was barely a whisper. Completely. Hopelessly. And I know you probably think it's because of the circumstances, or because I'm trying to be some kind of hero, but it's not. It's because you're brilliant and brave and beautiful, and you make me want to be a better man than I've ever been. Carla was crying now, and Robert wasn't sure if that was good or bad. I can't be someone's project, she said. I can't be the woman you saved. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try this, I need to know that you see me as an equal, not as someone you rescued. You rescued me, Robert said firmly. You and Maya. You rescued me from a life where I'd forgotten what really mattered. You rescued me from being the kind of man who cares more about his bank account than the people around him. Maya came running up to them then, breathless and laughing. Mommy! Mr. Robert! I caught 3 fireflies. Want to see? She opened her cupped hands, and 3 tiny lights blinked in her palms before flying away into the darkening sky. They're beautiful, baby, Carla said, wiping her eyes. Why are you crying? Maya asked with the directness of a child. Happy tears, Carla said. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're happy. Maya considered this. Are you happy because the fireflies are pretty? I'm happy because... Carla looked at Robert, then back at her daughter. I'm happy because we're all together. Me too, Maya said. Mr. Robert, are you going to stay with us forever? Robert's heart clenched. Would you like that? Yes, Maya said without hesitation. I think you should marry Mommy and then we can be a real family. Both adults laughed, but there was something in Maya's innocent suggestion that felt like a promise, like a glimpse of a future that was suddenly possible. Over the following weeks, as Carla grew stronger and the treatments continued to work, Robert found himself spending more and more time in Sedona. He started working remotely, conducting business calls from the house, taking meetings via video conference. His life in Los Angeles began to feel like something from another lifetime. Maya was thriving. She was enrolled in a local school where she quickly made friends and discovered a love of reading. She was still the same caring, responsible little girl, but she was also learning to be carefree, to play, to trust that the adults in her life would take care of the big problems. And Carla was becoming herself again. Not the sick woman struggling to survive, not the desperate mother working herself to exhaustion, but the person she'd been before cancer and poverty and fear had worn her down. She was funny and sharp and passionate about everything from cooking to politics to the books she was finally having time to read. One evening, about 3 months after they'd moved to Sedona, Robert found Carla in the kitchen making dinner. She was wearing one of his old shirts. She'd stolen it weeks ago, claiming her clothes were all too big now that she was gaining weight back, and she was humming while she stirred something on the stove. You know, she said without turning around, I think I'm ready. Ready for what? To hear you ask me to marry you properly. Robert nearly dropped the wine glass he was holding. What? Carla turned around, and she was smiling. Maya's been asking me for weeks when you're going to propose. Apparently, she's been giving you hints. She has, Robert admitted. Very subtle hints. Like asking me if I know what kind of ring you'd like and whether I think you'd prefer a big wedding or a small one. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd have to ask you what you wanted. Carla walked over to him, reached up, and put her arms around his neck. I want you to ask me to marry you, Robert Brooks. I want you to ask me because you love me, not because you want to save me. I want you to ask me because you can't imagine your life without Maya and me in it. Robert set down his wine glass and pulled her closer. Carla Rodriguez, will you marry me? Will you let me be Maya's stepfather and your husband and part of this incredible family you've built? Yes, she said without hesitation. But I have conditions. Name them. First, we pay you back every penny you've spent on us. It might take years, but we pay you back. Carla dash. Every penny, she repeated firmly. I need to know that I'm marrying you as an equal, not as someone who owes you everything. Robert nodded. Okay. What else? Second, we get married here. In Sedona. Small ceremony, just us and Maya and a few close friends. No media, no publicity, no turning our love story into some kind of fairy tale for other people to consume. Done. Anything else? Third, Carla said, and now she was smiling. You have to ask Maya for permission. Officially. She's been the most important person in my life for 6 years. I need to know she's okay with sharing me. I think I can manage that. They were interrupted by Maya herself, who came running into the kitchen wearing her pajamas and a huge grin. Did you ask her yet? She demanded. Did you ask Mommy to marry you? I did, Robert said solemnly. And she said yes. But I haven't asked you yet. Asked me what? Asked if it's okay with you if I marry your mom and become your stepdad. Maya pretended to think about this very seriously. Will you still take me to get ice cream? Every week. Will you still help me with my math homework? Every night. Will you still read me stories before bed? Every story you want to hear. Okay then, Maya said. You can marry Mommy. But I get to be in the wedding. You get to be the most important person in the wedding, Robert promised. Maya threw her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the kitchen, holding each other and laughing and crying at the same time. It wasn't the fairy tale ending that the news stories would have written. It was better. It was real. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love? Drop a circle emoji in the comments if you do. If you believe in redemption, in small acts of kindness changing lives, like, subscribe, and keep watching. Because we're not done yet. 1 year later, if you walked into Tony's Café on a Tuesday morning, you might see something that would make you smile. There's a woman behind the counter with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, healthy color in her cheeks, and a laugh that fills the whole place. She's not thin anymore, not frail, not fighting for her life. She's just Carla Brooks, co-owner of Tony's Café, wife to Robert, and mother to Maya. Yes, co-owner. Because after Carla recovered, after she and Robert got married in a small ceremony in Sedona with Maya as the flower girl and Tony as the best man, she did something that surprised everyone. She didn't want to be a rich man's wife who lunched and shopped and attended charity galas. She wanted to work. She wanted to contribute. She wanted to be part of something meaningful. So she and Robert bought Tony's Café from Tony, who was ready to retire and moved to Florida to be near his grandchildren. They kept the name, kept the recipes, kept the same warm, welcoming atmosphere that had made the place special. But they also expanded it, adding a small bookstore in the back, hosting community events, and starting a program that provides free meals to families going through medical crises. Maya is 7 now, and if you saw her, you'd see a little girl who's still kind and caring, but who's also learned to be a kid. She goes to school every day, plays soccer on weekends, and has sleepovers with her best friend Emma. She still helps at the cafe sometimes, but now it's because she wants to, not because she has to. She wears a smaller apron that says, Assistant Manager, and takes her duties very seriously. She calls Robert Dad now, and watching them together, you'd never know they haven't been father and daughter their whole lives. He teaches her to play chess, takes her camping in the desert, and listens patiently to her elaborate stories about the adventures she's going to have when she grows up. Robert still runs his development company, but he's changed the way he does business. He's more selective about projects, more concerned with building communities than just making money. He's also started a foundation, quietly without fanfare, that helps families facing medical bankruptcies. They don't publicize it, don't hold fancy fundraisers, don't use it for good publicity. They just help people, the way he was helped by a 6-year-old girl who paid for his coffee. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when Maya is doing homework at the kitchen table and Carla is reading in her favorite chair, Robert will look around at his life and marvel at how it all started. With a forgotten wallet, a small act of kindness, and a little girl who saw a stranger in need and decided to help. The media lost interest in their story eventually, the way media always does. There were other stories to tell, other people to celebrate or criticize. But sometimes, especially around the holidays, reporters will call asking for updates on the millionaire and the little girl who saved him. Robert and Carla always decline to comment. Their story isn't for public consumption anymore. It's just theirs. Maya still remembers that day when she paid for Robert's coffee. She's proud of it, in the way children are proud of doing the right thing. But she doesn't understand why it was such a big deal to the grown-ups. To her, it was just what you do when someone needs help. It was just being kind. Kindness isn't special, she told a reporter once, in one of the last interviews they agreed to do. It's just what people are supposed to do. And maybe that's the real lesson of this story. Not that kindness is rare or special or newsworthy, but that it should be ordinary. It should be what we do without thinking, without expecting anything in return, without wondering if someone deserves our help. Maya Rodriguez, now Maya Brooks, is growing up in a world where she's learned that small acts of kindness can change everything. She's learned that love can come from unexpected places, that families can be built as well as born, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is help a stranger buy a cup of coffee. She doesn't know it yet, but she's already planning her own acts of kindness. She's saving her allowance to buy toys for the children's hospital. She's learning to bake so she can make cookies for the elderly residents at the nursing home down the street. She's writing letters to soldiers overseas, just because she thinks they might be lonely. Because that's what happens when you're raised by people who understand that the richest people aren't those with the most money, but those who choose kindness, even when no one is watching. Robert and Carla's wedding rings are simple gold bands, but inside each one is an engraving that only they know about. It's not their wedding date or their names or, "I love you." It's something Maya said on their wedding day, when she was asked what she hoped for her new family. "I hope we always help people," she said. "Even when it's hard. Even when they can't pay us back. Even when nobody's watching." So that's what's engraved in their rings. Even when nobody's watching. It's a reminder that love isn't about grand gestures or dramatic rescues. It's about small, daily choices to be kind, to be generous, to see the humanity in everyone we meet. It's about paying for a stranger's coffee, not because they'll remember your name or repay the favor, but because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those small acts of kindness come back to you in ways you never expected. Sometimes they bring you a family, a purpose, a reason to be better than you thought you could be. Sometimes they bring you home. If you made it this far, you're the reason these stories matter. You're the reason kindness spreads, one person at a time, one small act at a time. Like this video if you believe in the power of ordinary kindness. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories that remind us what it means to be human. And share your own story in the comments. Tell me about a time when someone's kindness changed your day, or when you had the chance to help a stranger. Because the world needs more Maya Brooks. The world needs more people who see someone in need and think, "I can help." The world needs more of us to remember that we're all just people, trying to get by, trying to take care of the people we love, trying to make it through another day. And sometimes, all it takes is the price of a cup of coffee to change everything. Next day, I'll be back with another story that might just restore your faith in humanity. Until then, remember, kindness costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.